Hello, Jayma. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good, Jenny. How are you?
I'm great. I was so excited to see this movie. I find the Bill and Ted movies are very like comfort food movies.
Yes, a
Like
great
they feel really good, right? And I was curious,
lasagna of of movies.
right, right. I'm curious though, what are your kind of comfort food movies? Like, what are the things you watch over and over again? You'll never pass up when they're on TV.
No, that's good. That's a good question. Well, it's funny. Yeah, growing up, because you always go back to the stuff that you watched growing up, right? So for me, it was a lot of like Money Pit. I watched a ton, and even though that's sort of an unnerving movie, especially when we've just moved house a few months ago, it's like don't watch that movie. But that is one of my comfort movies. And then TV for me is probably more comfort, like Designing Women. I will watch. When I was
Ah,
pregnant, I watched like all the seasons of Designing Women over and over and over again.
the
Gold.
best. Are you from the South?
I am. Well, I'm from
Okay,
Virginia.
okay.
Appalachians, though. So it's like even though we're north, we're south.
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
our own thing.
right. Those show, I mean, Designing Women, Golden Girls, like those shows from around that time period are so comforting. Um, I love them, and I got to say, I just binged. I mean, speaking of TV shows, I just binged Great News with your husband, and you appeared in it too. Um, and talk about gone too soon. I mean, I needed at least four more seasons of it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. You call someone and have them do some more. You can Zoom that show at home.
Yes, right. No, I want it. I want it. And Jayma, I'm going to get into more of Bill and Ted, of course, but I have to talk about like you were in my favorite thing of all time. I know people know you from Glee, but and I love Glee as well. But The Comeback, season one.
Well, that's such an amazing show. Like, and that was one of my first parts. It was like such a. I can remember going in for that audition and getting the audition. Like so that one seared into my brain because that was very, very early on after I moved out here. But I mean, what a show!
I mean,
That's a good comfort show. I mean, sort of. It's an unnerving like her character is sort of scary to watch at times. You're like, don't stop talking. But what a great show.
I watched that season. I watched both seasons over and over again, and I find that it gets better over time. Like the more you watch it, the better it gets. And I've always been so curious. I was thrilled to get to talk to you because I've always been so curious about your scene in season one of The Comeback, where you're returning Valerie Cherish's sheets.
Yes, the sheets. It was the sheet scene.
And I'm so fascinated by it because it's such a slow paced scene. And that scene in particular really like shows that she's uncomfortable with reality TV cameras and that she's not giving enough. And I always thought as an actress or an actor, what are you thinking? Because no one knew what that show was exactly at that time. So what were you thinking when you're supposed to act with, there's not really many lines. It's just you're returning something.
Well, I remember. So I do remember in the audition, like reading those sides and feeling like, oh, this is something I think like because it was playing against her character who's always on and like trying to be on for the cameras, but you could tell by the way it was written, it was so well written that they wanted that character to play against that. But I also remember like feeling in the moment when we were filming, the director was like, you can even go slower, like just make it really uncomfortable for her. And it was so fun, but also sort of scary because I was like just moved to town and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm working with Phoebe, like but it was just such a memorable experience for me. It's amazing that you actually know that scene. So it's
Oh
not
yeah.
easy, but it's like it was, I mean, just like a little dream job to have. And she
Yeah.
was lovely. But that character was just so different as well. And I do think it's one of the best characters that's ever graced the television screen. It's
Hmm.
so complicated and wacky and wonderful.
I mean, every scene of that show, but even in the scene you're in, it's like there's so much happening behind Lisa's eyes, and there's moments where she cries, and it's just a beautiful show, and it's my all time favorite thing.
I love that. We often use the line in the house where we will go, I got it. I got it. That whole thing where she's like got the part anyway.
Well, I got it right.
I got it.
Jayma, can you tell people about, speaking of Lisa Kudrow, I sort of feel like Bill and Ted is sort of a sister or a brother to Romeo and Michelle in certain ways. But can you tell people about Bill and Ted, the new movie?
Yes, well, this is the third installment of the Bill and Ted movie, which I was very excited to be a part of. We can talk about that later. But yes, this is the third installment. This movie, Bill and Ted are a little bit older. They've been working for a few years on trying to create a song that will unite the universe. No big task. Sort of taking a toll on their family lives, to say it least. And yes, and I play Joanna Preston, who's one of the princesses. And I do like using that word princess, and I'll use it a lot when I'm talking to you and anybody from this day forward. But yes, that's their task. They've got quite a big task in this film.
You appear in some age makeup too, right?
You know what? We didn't have to. There are older versions of ourselves, but they found these two gorgeous women in New Orleans who I was like, yes, let her play me. Let her play me now. Yes, but the boys do. They do old age makeup and like kind of change their physique and some like their prosthetics and things throughout the film are incredible.
The prison scene where they appear just very jacked, and I was watching it. It seems so real. How stupid am I? I'm like watching. I'm like, is that CGI? Like, what's going on there?
Oh no, we do that all the time. I'll be watching something and go, well, they filmed that in New York because they've shown a shot of the skyline. I'm like, well, look, it's like magic of movies. Still, blows me away. But no, like when you're looking at them, it is hard to tell that what's going on because it's so real. And that's Bill Corso and his makeup genius. But they're kind of terrifying to look at.
Yeah. Did you watch the other? Were you a fan of the others back in the day when they came out?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And it's like those movies have sort of kind of don't know how to say other than like sort of shaped our culture in a way. And socially, especially as a kid, like in high school, I remember sort of the vernacular started changing. And the language that Bill and Ted spoke was, because I am from the Appalachians, it was sort of like a foreign language to us. Dude, righteous, that whole stuff. But it did kind of shape, I think, a generation in the way that we may have chosen to speak at times. Such an impressionable film.
Right. I was thinking about how many sort of copycats there have been since the first one. Of course, like Dude, Where's My Car? And every generation there seems to be different versions of these types of characters. But I rewatched the first two in preparation for this. And first of all, Keanu, I mean, still to this day, he's the most beautiful man. I think he's just stunning. But back then too, I was like, oh my God, he's just stunning. And I worship Keanu Reeves. So I was
even with that haircut, right? With that like bowl shag. I don't know what you call that hair.
Jayma, how did he pull that hair off? Like it was so bizarre. And I'm watching it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm still very attracted to Keanu Reeves. And it was the most strange haircut I've ever seen. I also noticed like the wardrobe too. It was interesting in this movie. Bill, who plays your husband, he was the one who had the jacket tied around his waist. And in the first movie, Keanu had the jacket around his waist. I don't know if that was even conscious, but I was like noticing.
I feel like everything they do is a conscious decision and is talked about and discussed, and like because they really care about these movies a lot. And yes, I was sort of amazed at how in depth they would talk about things. So I'm sure that was planned. I'm sure that was talked about.
Was the script sort of a mind fuck because it was very like intricately woven. I was like woven. I was like, I don't know if I would even understand that.
You say woven to a princess.
Yeah, it was intricate.
It was complicated at times. Obviously, because when you're filming, you don't film in order either. And this is what Dean Harris was so great about, and the boys were so good about too, and the writers, Ed and Chris, we sort of needed to dissect where we were and what had happened, and because we're jumping all over space and time, so it's like you would film the scene and you'd go, "What's happened now? Where am I?
Right.
What version are we, and who, I been to the future, and especially at the end when kind of time sort of like happens upon itself. There's so many things going on. It was confusing, but there were discussions about that, and they were very happy to talk through that, and they wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page and understood what was happening, even though it's too complicated for me to even.
Right. It was crazy.
Stand and show me my light.
Yeah, just point me to the red light and I'll give you my lines. Jayma, I have to ask about Glee. I watched every episode of that show, and I'm not even lying. I watched every single episode. Are you finding more people are watching it now that it's on Netflix?
Well, I don't know. It's funny because I'm not out and about at the moment with, all this stuff. So maybe, I don't know. I'm not on social media and all that stuff. So I'm assuming they are on Netflix. And my husband was like, "Oh, it's on Netflix now." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That might introduce it to a whole new set of people or kids that are at the right age to watch it now that weren't 10 years ago or whatever."
Right. I was so devastated about Naya's passing, and I just wondered, do you have a favorite memory of working with her? She was so incredibly talented.
She's was a vivacious girl and had the best laugh and the best sense of humor. And I have a lot of wonderful memories of Naya, and it's so funny. I've over the past month, I've thought a lot back to the first sort of few episodes that we filmed, because we were kind of in a bubble when we were filming. It hadn't aired or anything yet. And those are just some really wonderful, magical memories that I have, and of the whole cast. And I'm really thankful that I have those memories of everybody.
Yeah. It was such an impactful show. Do you have a favorite performance? I know Emma didn't do a whole ton of the singing, but.
No, performance for me,
or in general.
In general, "Don't Stop Believing" was probably the best song, just because again, when we were filming that first episode, the first season, we felt that something special was happening. We did it. You never know when you're filming anything if people are going to get it or whatever, but it's my child. I remember that song just kind of fueling this feeling that we all had, and like, something special might be happening, so that as much surprise.
My boyfriend's in the other room crying as well, so if you hear
maybe they can hang out together. Is your boyfriend good at playing with Magna-Tiles and Duplo? That would
shockingly. I mean, we have Legos. I'm literally staring at a Lego set right now. He does all the Lego sets.
Oh, they'd be a perfect match.
He's an adult, by the way, but yeah.
Yes, we got that.
But yeah, there's literally like a Super Mario Lego set that I'm looking at in my eyeline. Jayma, will we see another Bill and Ted? You guys would like to do another one? It seemed like it was probably really fun to film. I'm just assuming.
Do 100 of these. When I heard that it was even a possibility to be in this movie, I was like, I'll play the phone booth. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to get me into this movie. That part was already taken. But I would do 100 million of these. I would be a princess for 100 years.
I'm going to wrap this up now, but I ask everyone these last two questions real quickly. If you were choosing for People Magazine Sexiest Man Alive, who would you choose?
Oh, my husband.
Your husband.
Easy.
Yeah, he's very sexy in that movie, or in Great News too. And then
we looked at his hair. He has the best hair.
Great hair. Finally, a favorite Mariah Carey song.
Oh, God, there's it's the that one. That's the one that pops in mind. Is that Sweet Emotions?
Emotions is yeah.
Is that
it? I know, I'm blanking right now. I should be better. I'm a lamb, but
multiple albums of hers. And now I'm like, I don't know. That's that one.
Jayma, thank you so much. It was such a delight chatting with you. Please take care, and thank you for the chat.
And with you. Lovely to meet you.
Bye.
Good day.
You too.